Hello and welcome, friends. Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. I welcome all of you to the another segment of Usanas Dialogues. And today we are joined by Savio Rodrigues, a dear friend and an eminent expert on strategic affairs and internal security. I have known Savio Rodrigues from the days when he used to tour to the most interior and remote parts of Jammu and Kashmir during the peak days of militancy. As a journalist, he has done a immense work in running Goa Chronicle, and he has raised issues which mainstream media would always hesitate to raise. In the last 1.5 years, he has extensively toured Manipur and understood the conflict dynamics in that area. Now, that subject is very critical, but the awareness regarding that subject is very less. Certainly, it's a very crucial subject for India's national security. It has international ramifications, connections, implications, but we don't know much about it. That's very unfortunate. Today, we have an expert who has toured that area, who has visited one of the most interior parts of that state, and understood the conflict dynamics in all its nuances and details. So we are very lucky and fortunate to have him with us today. Thank you very much for joining us today, Savio, and we'll start with the question. So my first question, we all know that Manipur has been burning for last 1.5 years, but then beyond that, the awareness, frankly speaking, is very less. In your visits to that area, can you tell us very objectively what exactly is happening? How did it all start? And after that, we'll just discuss the other aspects of the conflict.
So the conflict in Manipur, which has been going on for the last 16 months, was primarily triggered by order, which intended to give status to the Mighty community, which was seen by the Kuki community as an infringement into their space, which is primarily the hills. Now, what many people don't understand is the demographic changes that are happening in Manipur. The demographic changes that are happening in Manipur is driven by the landmass control that the communities have in Manipur. So about 12% of the landmass in Manipur is in the Imphal area, which is the valley. And the remaining is in the hills, which is controlled by the Kukis and the Nagas. Now, when you look at it in that aspect, the indigenous people of Manipur, which are your Meitei people, obviously are also growing. So the 12% landmass is becoming insufficient for them to see a growth in what is considered to be the valley area. And therefore, as being indigenous people of Manipur, they had gone to the High Court to ensure that they get a certain amount of benefits via ability to move to some areas of the hills and to move economic activity towards the hills as Meiteis. Because the hills, if you know, are controlled by the Kukis and the Nagas. And that is the trigger of the crisis that has happened in Manipur right up from the order that was given by the High Court. Now, interestingly, every crisis is an opportunity for people with vested interest, whether it's individually, whether it's politically, or whether it's geopolitically. And that's exactly what has happened in Manipur. Let me tell you why I say that. Because the onset of the crisis, while the trigger is the court case in that and the court verdict, the real game is the control of the land. The real fight behind both the Meitei, the Kukis, the Nagas haven't got into the land fight yet. There was a time when the Nagas and the Kukis fought over territorial rights of the hills. Now, however, you have what is seen as the narcotics lobby that is also wanting to control the land in Manipur. Now, let me give you an indication of what the narcotics business in Manipur is all about. It is estimated to be roughly about 70,000 crore. 70,000 crore is the estimated value of the narcotics business from Manipur. But the narcotics business is not only the poppy business. While, yes, the government has worked extensively, the state government has worked extensively to crack down on the poppy business, and that is good. The fact of the matter is that the poppy business constitutes only 35% of the narcotics business that is happening in Manipur. Almost 12% is marijuana that is grown in Manipur, and some of it is for medicinal purposes. While the land aspect was driven by the court case, The larger interest is the narcotics lobby, which is about a 70,000 crore narcotics lobby, which is really fighting for the control of the land. 35% of the narcotics business is poppy, which is grown in the hills. 12% is marijuana, which is also grown in the hills. But the remaining 52% of the narcotics is synthetic drugs. And synthetic drugs are happening in the valley region, which is normally controlled by the mighty Pangals. Now, why is the narcotics lobby so interested in the hills? The narcotics lobby are interested in the hills primarily to move some of the labs that are there for synthetic drugs into the hills. When the conflict got activated in Myanmar, the need for a place to push the production of drugs, whether it's synthetic or opium-based drugs, was moved to Manipur. And that is when the escalation of the narcotics trade in Manipur happened. And by virtue of that, place becomes the most important aspect of control. And that is why I have always said that there is no saint in Manipur as far as when the narcotics issue is concerned, because people across communities are involved in the narcotic trade, whether they are politically linked or whether they are linked directly to the narcotics business. People in both Kangpopi and Churachandpur, who are actually people who work to grow poppy. When I asked him, I said, why are you doing this? One of the village elders over there actually confessed. He said, listen, let me give you some economics around it. The economics is very simple. If we grow anything else, we make about 1 lakh, maybe in about 2 to 3 months. But if we grow poppy, we are able to make about 3 to 4 lakhs a month. And that is the kind of seasonal value we get when we grow poppy. So I'm not saying we are doing something right or wrong, but this is why we are doing it for economic advantage. And that's when I told him, I said, economic advantage does not allow you to do something that is illegal. So while they have used this as a continuous reason to justify the growth of poppy, there is also an extensive growth of synthetic drugs in Manipur. Interestingly, the chemicals to process the synthetic drugs in Manipur come from Tamil Nadu, which is very, very interesting, because they come to the borders, and from the borders they get taken into Manipur, into the interiors within Imphal and some aspects of the hill region as well. Now, the initial fight which was there in Manipur was related to a clash between the Meiteis and the Kukis. It flared up primarily because the narcotics wanted to foment trouble. The narcotics lobby wanted to foment trouble between the Meiteis and the Kukis in the need to control the land. But what was created in the media was that this is a religious conflict between the Meiteis, which are predominantly Hindus, and the Kukis, which are mostly Christians. But if it was a religious conflict, then the Christians themselves, the Meitei Christians themselves, should have been targeted by the Meiteis, but they were not. So while there were 317 churches that were destroyed in Manipur, there were also 398 temples that were destroyed in Manipur. And these are data that has been put out by various communities. The Kukis have put out their own data. The Meiteis have put out their own data. Right now, you have an investigation going on by a Supreme Court monitored investigator. The point is this: the inability for us to contain the situation within the first month of the conflict has allowed a lot of nefarious elements, especially the proscribed terror groups, which are given the term insurgents, are actually the ones fomenting the trouble in Manipur even today. You have them in the Meitei section, you have them in the Kuki section. The commonality between both the proscribed terror groups that exist or the insurgent groups that exist is that in Myanmar, and every single one of them is funded by the PLA, which is the Chinese army. So both sides of the Kuki and the Mighty wings are trained and funded and weaponized by the Chinese themselves. Now, interestingly, what happened in Manipur is that the arms depot was looted. And when the arms depot was looted, about 6,000 odd arms were out in the open.
This part once again, but before that, my question is that that court order which triggered the whole situation, and so in that context, I must say that our intelligence agencies have been working in that region for several decades, and we all know that the ethnicity is something which is very crucial to that region, much more than the religion. So, was there a lack of intelligence? Did government not do its homework properly, or I mean, what was their analysis of the situation? Like, it seems that they should have done their homework before the court order, or like at least after the court order, they should have they have such a big paraphernalia of intelligence agencies, and they could have got the right input and managed the situation in the first month of the crisis unfolding. I just like to interrupt. I remember because after this incident, I spoke to a very senior intelligence officer from the IB, a very senior officer. And the person has like vast experience in Northeast. And he told me that, well, playing with ethnic issues in the Northeast is just like playing with fire. Now, that statement is very loaded, which means that the senior leadership in the intelligence, they already know what's happening in the Northeast. And this is something which carries a lot of past baggage. And the present approach, at least in the security setup or the intelligence setup, is to avoid the problem and maintain the status quo. But within the framework of that status quo, as you rightly mentioned, the narcotics lobby was spreading its game. It was getting itself entrenched very deeply. So on one hand, we see that the bureaucratic leadership was just trying to maintain the status quo, avoid the situation. The political leadership, the current political leadership, wanted to move ahead, but did not have a much larger vision, or there was a lack of a deeper study. And at the same time, the previous political leadership, I mean to say the previous governments which have ruled in the center and the state, they might have made their own contribution to germinate this problem, to escalate this problem, or at least to make this problem something very deep rooted. Now, with this framework, my question is that from this stage, where should we go? What is the way ahead?
Plus to get resolved. And the Kukis and the Nagas are predominantly Christians again. They were fighting with each other. So how can it be a religious conflict? It is a territorial conflict.
I agree, certainly. I mean, the religious dimension is something which is being played out in the international media, or maybe some of those subversive national media also. But they're deliberately trying to miss on the ethnicity part of the conflict, which is very critical to the northeastern region. I've widely traveled that area. Now, coming back to some of the other aspects of the problem, you discussed about this whole narcotics network. Now, it seems that this golden triangle situation in the northeast and Manipur seems to be getting more and more entangled into that. And with the conflict escalating in Myanmar, things appear to be much more dangerous. Can you tell us a bit more about this narcotics network?
Most important aspect, like I said earlier, is Myanmar was the hub for synthetic drugs as well as poppy. It's one of the reasons why they had such popularity, because of the drugs. And that drugs would ship to different parts of the world through the borders that existed in Myanmar, Bangladesh, the Rohingyas, various different networks. Once the conflict happened in Myanmar, the production of narcotics reduced. For that, they needed to have a substitute place to allow for the growth of the narcotics business. The most likely substitute place was Manipur, because it was a border state with Myanmar. So they came, a lot of insurgents, or you could say illegal immigrants, came into Manipur. Most of them are from both the communities, because you also have Maitis in the Burma area in some aspects of it. The point is, you don't look at the narco terrorists or the narcotics players as Maiti or Cookies. You're looking at them as the narco players, because it doesn't matter the community they belong to. To tell you most honestly, the synthetic drugs in Manipur is by the mighty Pangals, which are Muslims, not belonging to Hindus or Christians. The point is that narcotics is a high valued game which ensures corruption happens at all levels, whether it is the police, whether it's the political lobby, whether it is the influencers in those regions, whether it's the village chief in those regions. There is a sort of brotherhood that is created around the narcotics. So when the situation in Myanmar intensified, the logical extension to that was Manipur. And in Manipur, there ensured huge amount of synthetic drugs production, which is happening in the mighty Pangal areas. You have poppy, which is another huge production happening in the hills. That is where the problem is. So when they want to control it, they will control it whichever way at the end of the day. It doesn't matter which government is in power. Therefore, in order to create a situation of conflict, to keep it burning so that there is no economic development. If you see Narendra Modi, prior to the conflict, visited Manipur 7 times, Northeast. That does not benefit the narcotics lobby at all. Why is the narcotics lobby so much wanting the hills? And why is there a conflict in the hills to get the hills? Because the hills become the exit route to various different destinations that can be utilized.
Savio, one more thing. So, I just saw that yesterday, some of these cookie terror groups, they used a drone to attack, to orchestrate an attack. Now, that is something which is very alarming. Can we, no, as you mentioned a while back that the cookies are controlling the hills, the mountains, and well, I cannot say with surety, but as a lay observer, I feel that definitely cookies are slightly better organized in terms of their terror outfits and all. Can we say that these terror groups are deeply entrenched? They have like deep networks with the narcotics lobby. I mean, how are they getting all these drones and all that? That is also a question.
So both sides of the proscribed terror groups and the insurgent groups are connected to the narcotics lobby. It is not only the cookies. The cookies are more experienced in this kind of warfare. Please understand that. The Maitis are not known to really get into a conflict of such a nature. The last conflict that happened in Manipur happened between the cookies and the Nagas. The cookies have been fighting even the junta, military junta in Myanmar. If you look at the conflict, most of the people fighting the military junta are again Chin cookies. So
Yes.
conflict is something that they are experienced with, not so much the Maitis. So they do have a distinctive advantage. More so, they are at a hilly region, which gives them an advantage
Yes.
to take on the Maitis. So do they have sophisticated weapons? Keeping aside the cookie people, the cookie insurgents, and the other proscribed terror groups in Manipur certainly have weapons with them. And most of these weapons have come from China.
Okay. Great.
So
So that
please
comes.
understand the flow. So what is Manipur right now? Because we didn't deal with the problem quicker, Manipur now has become a melting pot of geopolitical tension that could flare up and spread to the rest of the Northeast. Let me give you the reason why I'm saying that. In Manipur, because we had very porous border before the conflict, you have almost around 4,500 to 5,000 illegal immigrants that are in Manipur who have come from Myanmar, which are predominantly Chinkuki immigrants. But you have 40,000 of them in Mizoram. 40,000 refugees, illegal immigrants, whatever you want to term them, from Myanmar are in Mizoram. Right?
That's alarming.
So we have a very porous border. That border was, you could actually walk through. Okay. The point is this. We had a porous border. We are now securing that border. But what has happened now? Many people within the cookie community tell me that you are not empathizing towards us. I am empathizing towards the cookie people who consider themselves to be nationals of India. But I'm certainly have no sympathy or empathy for anyone who's within the proscribed terror group or within the, because at the end of the day, I understand that the Chin cookies are your cousins that come from Myanmar. But because they're your cousins from Myanmar and are illegal immigrants in our country, doesn't give them the right to bomb us, doesn't give them the right to attack other people.
Yes.
Their logic is we are defending ourselves. So come to the table and dialogue. Why is it that whenever there is an escalation, whenever there is a peace talk happening, there is always escalations to the violence happening?
Now that begs another question, Samuel. You mentioned about the deep-rooted foreign stakeholders in this whole conflict. You mentioned about the PLA training some of these terror groups, also about an American organization. Now, given that, I would like to place it situated in the context of the larger agenda of destabilizing India. There's a big rumor, or let's say, even a part of the mainstream academic and media discourse today, that there are forces who are trying to dislodge the present government and create a massive instability in India. We have seen what happened in Bangladesh. Yesterday, I was also watching one of your interviews with the Republic TV, in which you mentioned about the Western deep state trying to create a worrying situation in India. Do you think that Manipur conflict is the part of the larger agenda to destabilize India?
Yes. And let me explain why. And it was not something I said. It was something we were following for a very long time. But it got confirmed by Sheikh Hasina herself. When Sheikh Hasina, who was the former president of former prime minister of Bangladesh, when she spoke about it to her party in a party meeting, she very categorically stated the conversation with a white man who requested or demanded for the St. Martin's Island. During the course of the conversation to her party members, she also stated that the white man's intent was to create a Christian nation out of parts of Bangladesh, Myanmar, but she did not specify India for political reasons. But when she made that statement and she spoke about carving out that part to create a Christian nation, she was very clear when she said Christian nation. Post her statement, we went and spoke to representatives of her party to understand what really did she mean. And that is when the India bit came about, that she was also referring to Northeast, Manipur and Mizoram. Now, logically, it makes sense for anyone to want that, because that is what the cookies are asking for also. They are wanting a cookie land. They are wanting a land of Chin cookie Zo, which they might later call Zogam. So there is a confusion in the naming that they want to do. But the point is, could people of the Myanmar side, which is a Chin cookie state, or the Chin state as you call it, could parts of Bangladesh and could Mizoram and Manipur be brought together to form a Christian nation? By the sheer religious ethnicity, that is a probability that the US could want. Because you have Pakistan, that is an Islamic nation. You have Bangladesh, which is now moving towards Islamic radicalism. And you have India, which is seen as a Hindu majority nation. So to have a Christian nation in between works towards the US advantage of putting pressure on India through the religious minority narrative that they've been building for so long.
Yes.
One. Number two is St. Martin's Island. Why is St. Martin's Island so important? It's a very, very tiny island, but it's roughly about 25 kilometers from the northeast itself. The point is this: the St. Martin's Island demand was not to check China's hegemony in the region. It was to keep a watch on India and to use it as a pressure point. That's why they want to create a military base in that region. And that was their demand, which Sheikh Hasina spoke about. So when Sheikh Hasina, who is a leader of a country, is afraid of the fact of this is a probable outcome, and it becomes a reality. An element of truth in what she was saying. You cannot as a conspiracy theory, because what she was afraid of became a reality.
You mentioned about the NED. I must tell you that while I was at Cornell, I just came to know about NED. And NED is, in US, it's considered one of the most prestigious entity in Washington, DC. And for Ivy League graduates, it's one of the most lucrative career options. They try Brookings, they try NED, and they work there. And even the Indian students, who are mostly the sons and daughters of the, elite sperm club of India, that is the highly placed bureaucrats, who are studying in the US, and for them, NED is like the most prestigious job opportunity. And if you work there after that, you can, find your ways easily in the multilateral organizations like the UN, World Bank, IMF, even the global NGOs. So that's how the Americans like to market it. But yes, his last name Prabhudas, speaks something very, very deep about his ancestry, something which is, indelible, which cannot be wiped out, which cannot be vanished. But anyways, thank you very much for highlighting these various aspects of the Manipur conflict. There is certainly a huge lack of awareness, and people need to know about it, I guess. That too in the national interest. There are various geopolitical actors playing a very nasty game in this entire conflict. And certainly we are at a stage where such conflicts and such pernicious actors will become much more prominent and much more lethal in the future, which is why such lectures, based on the experience of the people who have toured the ground in that area, become very crucial. You told about the fact that the conflict is not religious, but the narrative which is being played out in the mainstream media is that the conflict is religious. Now, the most crucial part, that it's an ethnic conflict between the Kukis and Metis, is something which needs to be brought out, and people are missing out on that. Even for the policy making purpose, that is an issue which needs to be taken into account very seriously. I hope the policy makers, the people in the government, people in the security setup, are able to watch this program and get some crucial ideas to chart out a future course for the serious problem of Manipur. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure. It's a delight to speak to you. I admire your passion, your enthusiasm to go in the most dangerous areas, work on the ground and get the real facts out. Thank you very much, Safi. Thank you.